So very good afternoon. So today we'll be discussing almost 2 weeks current affairs, I can say. Okay, so there is no current affairs class in the recent times, right? So that is the reason I'm covering from 21st to 31st October. Okay, so which I felt. So a lot of things will be there, but like most of the things which are important from prelims and mains examination point of view, keeping the time I have. So I have limited my discussion to these topics. Okay, so 12 topics in total. So first is secularism, so which is very much important in your polity and societal context. Then digital arrest, GS3, SNT, especially ICT and cyber crimes. Then Gaganyaan mission and Chandrayaan 4 mission dates were announced recently by ISRO, so very much important in SNT. Then BRICS summit happened recently in Russia, right? Our Prime Minister also attended. So from IR point of view, we'll be discussing this topic as well. Then COP16 to UN CBD, right? So an important international environmental conservation with respect to biodiversity, and recent summit happened in Colombia. We'll discuss that. Then stubble burning. So when winter comes or even during Diwali, Delhi will be a smoke chamber, gas chamber also, right? So we'll be discussing this context also. Then these are important from prelims point of view, right? So why I have chosen this particular topic is because if you have seen 2024 question paper also, they have asked a military exercise with respect to India and Sri Lanka. That is the reason why I have given this also. And then exercise Malabar also. These are two important defense exercises recently happened in India. One in Goa and another is in Visakhapatnam. Then this is a Moonlight program of another country, not with respect to India, but still it is being conducted for the very first time, right? Planned for the first time. So that is also, it is important. Then Durgesh Aranya Zoological Park. So this was in news for some reason, and it was the first zoological park to get this criteria or status. Okay, so that is also what I want to mention. And Konark wheels with respect to art and culture and architecture. And then greenhouse gas bulletin, an important report released by World Meteorological Organization, right? So these are different things which I'm going to discuss. So first thing we are going to discuss is the idea of secularism. So there are two different contexts for this particular issue. And recently what happened is our Chief Justice of India, Chandrachud also, so he made a mention that secularism is very much intrinsic part of your basic structure of Indian Constitution. That is one recent context. And another context is recently one ex-Muslim woman. So she had requested to apply a secular law of Indian Succession Act instead of applying Shariat law. Okay, so that means previously she was part of Islamic religion, but now she got converted and she is asking for application of Indian Succession Act, a secular law, instead of applying Shariat law. Shariat law is applied to Islamic followers, right? So she doesn't want that law to apply with respect to succession. So she wants the application of Indian Succession Act of 1925. So these are the two contexts. That means whether we can choose whatever the religion we want, because there is a lot of debate going on with respect to uniform civil code also, right? Irrespective of religion, there should be uniform code. But now if we have personal laws, multiple personal laws, then which law should govern? That is also a major challenge, right? That is the reason these two are also the recent context of this idea of secularism. So what is secularism? See, one second. So, but actually, see, by the time when it was applied, okay, then she'll, for example, if she has initiated any process of adopting anyone or taking the property from anyone, then at the time if she was a Muslim, okay, so then that law will apply, right? It will not go on in the recent times. Retrospectively, at that point of time when she had applied for this particular thing or she has initiated this process, then that particular law will apply. Okay, that is the reason. Okay, so there is a demand, but we don't know what will be the course of time. So, but what is secularism? Only that aspect is there. Very good. So two aspects are there. One is separation of religion in the state. Okay, so there should not be any intervention of the state in the religious affairs. Second aspect of Indian secularism is you should treat all the religions equally. Two aspects are included. You cannot say only one aspect of secularism. Okay, so keep this in mind. And when we talk about secularism, my question is, Are we secular right from the time of our constitution coming into force? That means only after 1976 we became secular. Then are we atheist or a theocratic state, or what type of state are we at that point of time? Explicitly we have mentioned the term secular with 42nd Amendment Act 1976. But before that also many provisions of Indian Constitution reflect secularism in its ideology. Okay, so that means intrinsically there is some mention about secularism, but the idea of secularism became more explicit with the 42nd Amendment in 1976. That is what you have to keep in mind. Okay, so that is the reason many times, like at that point of time during emergency, it was Indira Gandhi who have initiated this amendment, and she brought in the two terms called secular and socialist along with the term integrity into the preamble, right? So, but otherwise there are many other provisions. That is the reason many a times it is becoming a political issue, because BJP want all the time the removal of secular, right? So that is also the recent relevance, because one member, Subramanya Swamy, most famous Rajya Sabha member from BJP, so he was demanding the repeal of the term secular from the preamble of Indian Constitution. So what is the need? So that is the main thing. Okay, so that is the agenda of BJP also sometimes. And in opposite, because Congress has added, so BJP will demand the removal. Okay, that's the main thing. But here, what is the main thing we need to understand is secularism as a topic is very much important in polity, as well as if you have seen the syllabus of society in GS1 also, there is a clear mention about the term secularism. And its relevance has been more important because in the recent times there is a demand for uniform civil code as well. In that context, they can relate this to secularism and they can ask a question, right? So in this context, you need to know what type of secularism are we following and what are the constitutional provisions. Different types of cases also you need to quote here. There is a lot of scope to widen this topic, okay? Because in future, they can also ask an essay also based on this topic, okay? So there is a lot of chance of asking any type of thing here. Very good afternoon. So first point of discussion is here. The main thing you need to understand is secularism is an intrinsic part of Indian Constitution, but it was added by 42nd Amendment, okay, to the preamble. That is first thing you need to understand. Then let us understand the meaning of the word secular. As I told you, equal treatment of all religions along with strict separation of the state from religious affairs. That is what the meaning of Indian secularism. And on the other hand, as I just told you, there is also an addition of the term socialism or socialist. Socialist nature means we know because of our first Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru, who was so much inclined towards socialism, right? Socialism means national control of resources, right? So that means instead of private controlling like in the capitalist economy, here the resource control, concentration and control has to be in the hands of government. That means if nationalization of resources happen, then there will be equitable distribution of resources so that we can achieve a classless society. That is what the main objective of having a socialist state. So, and we have taken socialism in the beginning, but later on today if you have seen, Indian economy is a mixed economy where we are maintaining a balance of socialism as well as capitalism. We are getting more and more privatized, right? So more and more privatization is indicating that we are becoming capitalistic. But on the other hand, certain things are reserved for the government only still now, right? So railways and all this, and that is also highlighting that we are a socialist state also, right? Then after understanding this, let us understand what is a judicial intervention in the aspect of secularism. So the famous Keshwan and the Bharti case of 1973, where the fundamental question is whether Parliament can amend the fundamental rights or not, right? So in the Golaknath case of 1967, you very well know that Parliament cannot amend fundamental rights. That was a question. Okay, so that was a Supreme Court judgment, and subsequently 24th and 25th constitutional amendments in 1971 were enacted by then Parliament under Indira Gandhi, saying that Parliament will have unlimited power to amend the constitution. If you amend anything, then courts cannot intervene. So only courts have struck down the second provision. They said, we'll examine that in the Keshwan and the Bharti case. That is how the case came also. All these are related to right to property only at that point of time, which has resulted in more judicial disputes also, right? So that is also another aspect. So in this Keshwan and the Bharti case, we know an important pronouncement in the form of basic structure doctrine came into picture, right? So for the very first time in the country, Parliament's power to amend the constitution was restricted by basic structure doctrines, right? That is one main thing you need to remember. And second, it happened in the case of SR Bombay versus Union of India case. So this case is very much important because you need to remember in case of federal issues or in the case of president's rule or on the role of governor or on the issue of secularism, you need to quote this case, okay? Because many times Supreme Court, okay, what are the instructions, how center-state relations have to be, or when a president rule has to be invoked, or what is the role of governor, all these things are clearly outlined in this particular case, okay? So in this case also, if any secular policy is not upheld by the particular state government, that means if the state government is not running administration secularly, then that can be a ground for imposition of president rule. That is what the judgment told, okay? So that is the only aspect I'm referring here, right? Many other aspects are also covered under SR Bommai case, but only secular aspect of SR Bommai is the thing which you need to remember here, right? So then with respect to interpretations, so first thing you need to know what is socialist, okay? Socialist means there should be equal distribution of resources and also concentration of wealth should not be in the hands of few. That is what we have in the provisions of 39 clause B in 39 clause C. So all these time they come in direct contravention with article 14 and 19 of your Indian constitution, right? That is what the reason we have today also judicial supremacy maintained, right? So we have some precedent set by judiciary. What will be prevailing first? Is it your fundamental rights or is it your directive principles? Which one will prevail? In case if there is a conflict between two and the matter went to Supreme Court, then which one will be interpreted? Fundamental rights, all fundamental rights? Geetika? Fundamental rights except 14 and 19 will prevail first. Second, directive principles of except 39 B and C, okay? Then article 14 and 19, then remaining DPSPs, okay? So that is how the order of precedence was set by judiciary in case of conflict between fundamental rights as well as directive principles of state policy, okay? So because this is what you have article 14 right to equality and 19 at that point of time included right to property also, right? Because of this there is a concentration here, the duty of the state to distribute the resources equally among all the persons, and here there is a right to property also as a fundamental right. So then which has to be upheld? Both are also the parts of the same constitution, right? That is the reason to maintain this balance. What Supreme Court said is this will prevail because see here it is individualistic right to property, but here it is larger interest of the public. So this has to outweigh this article. So compared to all other articles of fundamental rights, that will prevail. But in case if you are having conflict between 14, 19, 39 B and C, this will prevail over this. Later this fundamental rights and then other directive principles will prevail. That is what the precedent set by judiciary. Okay, clear? Then after this we also need to understand what is secularism. I just told you equal treatment or right to equality in terms of all religious affairs is the main thing, and you should also have the feeling of fraternity. Now let us understand what is a critique of secularism, right? So if everything is going on well, then what is the main issue, right? Because if you see the critique, it is infamous because of its diminishing judicial power. Because most of the times these provisions are diminishing the judicial power, right? That means it is limiting the judicial power by separation of powers. We have certain provisions given to the constitution, given by the constitution to judiciary also, right? Otherwise, if you see, the declaration of secularism and socialism as intrinsic part is diminishing the role of judiciary. That is the main criticism, okay? Because judiciary has got a confined role or limited role with the addition of these two terms in the Indian constitution, right? Then secularism means these two things are very much important. Edi? Critic. See, ఇది 42nd amendment ఎందుకు మనం క్రిటిసైజ్ చేస్తాం ఎప్పుడు మనకు సెక్యులర్ అండ్ సోషలిస్ట్ టర్మ్స్ యాడ్ చేశారు కదా 42nd amendment 1976 ద్వారా. అది ఎందుకు క్రిటిక్ చేస్తున్నారు అంటే బికాస్ ఈ 42nd amendment what did it do? It has constrained the power of judiciary in amendments in review of laws related to socialism or secularism. అందుకని 42nd amendment ఏమంటాం మనం జనరల్ గా మినీ కాన్స్టిట్యూషన్ అని కూడా అంటాం బికాస్ ఆఫ్ లాట్ ఆఫ్ అమెండ్మెంట్స్ డన్. So they wanted to centralize the power and they wanted to give more powers to the parliament and they wanted to take away judicial review also, right? That is the reason it was the critique of 42nd Amendment. Okay, amendment itself is trying to increase more powers with the Parliament of India, and it wants to decrease the powers to the Supreme Court of India, right? That is why it was criticized, right? Then, so what is secularism? These two things have to be understood: separation of religion from the state affairs and equal treatment of all religion. Okay, that means, so you need to maintain some distance, but in case of any necessary intervention, you should treat every religion equally. You cannot discriminate one religion against another, right? That is what Indian concept of secularism. Then there are three different models of secularism in general. So first one is US secularism. Okay, US based secularism maintains some arm's length distance between state as well as religious affairs. Okay, so arm's length distance, so they generally don't intervene into religious affairs. That is how they maintain. But when you come to France secularism, so this is considered as a negative secularism, because generally in France, maintaining your own religion is seen as a private affair. They don't generally see it as a public affair. So in any situation, there won't be any intervention by the state in your religious affairs. That is what the French secularism is. It is a negative secularism, but whereas Indian secularism is a positive secularism. Okay, so this is Western and this is Indian. I'll explain the differences, but when you come to Indian secularism, although there is a separation between state and religion, in some situations where it is warranted, state can intervene. For example, in the name of religion. For example, if I say, in my religion, every day I have to offer some human as a sacrifice to the god. Can that be allowed? No. State will have the right to intervene, right? And you know, in Jains also, Sarlekana is one which they fast on to death, right? So that means, so if you have seen under Article 25 to 28 also, there are reasonable restrictions imposed like public order, health, morality. These type of things are there because you cannot cross a beyond certain limit. Okay, that is the reason why Indian secularism, although there is a separation, but sometimes when there is a need, state can intervene in the religious affairs. Right, that is one you need to understand. Then coming to the concept of Western secularism and Indian secularism, which one is positive and which is negative? So this is negative form of secularism and this is positive form of secularism. Here there will be strict separation between state as well as religion. But here sometimes, okay, so you can say like this. So state and religion will be interlinked also sometimes. Okay, so when it is required, they can intervene. Here there won't be any policies or any financial assistance from the government to the religious matters. So there won't be any intervention here, right? So whatever the situation also, they don't intervene into the religious affairs. But here, you know, sometimes when it is required, some policies or even financial assistance also can be issued by the government. So for example, you know, recently the most controversial issue is Muslim Waqf Code. Okay, how to manage the Waqf properties and all. That is the most contentious issue also, right? That means as it is a secular state and there is a necessary intervention when it required, that is the reason why Indian Parliament has passed that particular bill. Okay, so that is what you have to understand. So this is what the basic difference between Indian and Western secularism. Then, so what are the constitutional provisions? This is very much important. Okay, even in GS2 you need to show more touch of constitutional provisions in your case laws. But whereas in society, try to include multiple dimensions as well as some constitutional provisions also. You know, 14, right to equality. 15, no discrimination on the grounds of religion especially. Then 16, in terms of public employment and educational opportunities. 25, freedom of religion. Okay, freedom to profess, and confess your religion. Then 26 is, this is individual freedom and this is community freedom, right? Right to manage religious affairs as a grouping here. Then Article 27, freedom from payment of any taxes. Okay, so no one will be compelled to pay any tax for promotion of any religion. So you need not pay any tax. So being a minority and all. So here this is taxes. Then what is 28? You cannot be forced to attend any religious instruction in any educational institution which is aided or partly aided by the state. Okay, that means if you are belonging to one religion And if you are studying in any other religious based education institution, there you cannot be compelled to attend the prayers. Morning prayers will be there, no, in Christian missionary schools or any schools. There you cannot be compelled to attend. Okay, you will be having freedom not to attend also. This is what the famous case of Biju Emmanuel versus the state of Kerala case, where the persons of Christianity were forced to attend national anthem. The students have stood in the line only. They didn't actually sing the national anthem. Because of that reason, the principal has suspended the children, the school children. So then the case was filed. So then Supreme Court has intervened and it said, although they did not sing the national anthem, but they did not disrespect by standing. They just have stood in the queue and they have already assembled in the queue. That is not disrespecting, or it is not amounting to dishonoring of national anthem. So they have to be reinitiated into the school. That is what the judgment, famous judgment regarding Article 28, Biju Emmanuel versus State of Kerala case. Okay. Then Article 29, that is rights. Okay, rights of religious as well as linguistic minorities to conserve and protect language, script of their choice. Okay, so at the same time, here not only religious as well as linguistic minorities, majorities also will be included. That is what Supreme Court have interpreted. Okay, so not only minorities, linguistic as well as religious minorities and majorities also included. Okay, they have their right to conserve their language, scripture and culture. Then Article 30, minorities' rights to establish their educational institutions. So you know, madrasas and all these things will be enabled under this particular provision. Okay, so they can establish their educational institutions. Article 44 talks about uniform civil code. It's a directive principle. And then Article 51A, you have fundamental duty, where any practice which is again against the violation of secular principles. Okay, so you should not do those things, and you should also have this feeling of fraternity and brotherhood among all the citizens of India. This is your fundamental duty. So these are the certain principles in the Indian Constitution which are highlighting the essence of secularism. Next, what are the criticisms of secularism in India? So first one is ambiguous definition. There is no clear definition of what is secularism. Although we are saying strict separation, in sometimes there is religious intervention by the state. So when can state intervene and when state has to maintain the distance? That is not clearly mentioned. That is also one issue. Then positive discrimination. So we know, although we are saying right to equality in the form of 14 and there should not be any discrimination in the form of 15, but still reservations are allowed. Reservations allowed means that is also affirmative action. That is also a positive type of discrimination. Same is the case here also. You are saying you should treat all the religions equally. At the same time, you are also allowing some rights given to religious as well as linguistic minorities. Right? That means you are showing some positive discrimination in this regard. That is also one criticism. Then vote bank politics. You know, religion is the most often used thing, okay, for securing votes and all. And state intervention is also disputed thing. So if you are saying strict separation, there has to be separation. Why state is intervening in some situations? That is also a question. And then lack of uniform civil code, right? So when you have multiple plural laws and all, so then how can you ensure secularist principles? That is also a criticism. Then what are the factors that are threatening the secular fabric in the recent times? Means mingling of this religion as well as politics, okay? Vote bank politics and all these things. And as I told you once or twice, I don't remember, but one thing is, in the name of conservation of any language, if anyone appeals for vote, okay, that's not a violation of Representation of People's Act 1951, but in the name of any religion or in the name of caste, if you appeal any vote, that's a violation of Representation of People's Act. Okay, you cannot ask for votes in the name of caste or religion. You can ask in the name of conservation of a language. Okay, that is one you have to remember. Then economic inequalities. So according to such a committee, which was appointed especially to look into the conditions of Muslims, who form almost 14% of the population, when they found, what they have found is, although they occupy 14% of the population, they still only occupy 2.5% of government jobs. That means inadequate representation. Okay, so that means minorities are very confined in terms of getting the benefits from the government. That is what the highlight of the Sachar committee. That means economically also there is a lot of disparity between one religion and another religion. Then communal riots, Godhra riots, okay. So Muzaffarnagar riots, we have Ayodhya, Babri Masjid. So many issues are there with respect to the essence of religion. Then rise of Hindu nationalism. In the recent times, Hindu-based politicization is very much happening in the name of love jihad or Gar Wapsi, means, right? Return back to Hinduism. In any case, any person gets converted into another religion other than Hinduism, Gar Wapsi means return back to Hinduism. That type of campaigning and all this is also threatening the secular fabric. If you have remembered, in 1875 also, Arya Samaj when it was established, Dayanand Saraswati also have given Shuddhi movement. Go back to Vedas, reconversion. Those are the things at that point of time also. And with respect to slaughtering of cows also, there is so much restriction imposed, right? So, cow is a sacred animal for Hinduism, but still Muslims and all were also, again, treated in a bad manner in case if they resort to cow slaughtering and all. That is also a violation, or you can say the rise of Hindu nationalism. Then, discriminatory legislations. So, Citizenship Amendment Act is giving citizenship for the first time in the ground of religion. So far, we only have given citizenship based on birth or different process. But first time, we have brought the element of religion also into citizenship related issues. That is also creating some threat to secularism in India. Then Islamic fundamentalism, right? So this idea of Islamic or establishing a jihad state is also creating some threat. And at the same time, there is also increasing radicalization in the form of Islamic State and other organizations that are trying to assert the dominance. Okay, so this is how these are the threats. Then, so there are many other quotes. These are very much important to write in mains also with respect to secularism. First one we have is doctrine of essentiality. This main case is related to hijab issue. Last year and before last year, hijab issue is so much it was in news, right? So at that point of time, wearing a hijab, is it part of essential practice, religious practice or not is a question. And in this Schedule Mutt case, very much important, Supreme Court has said there will be a doctrine of essential religious practice, and wearing a hijab is also a part of essential religious practice. Okay, so that means wearing this particular thing is it very much essential to maintain the aspects of religion or not is a question in this particular case. Then ensuring non-discrimination. So Shah Bano case 1985, very much important because it is related to the issue of maintenance. So section 125 of CRPC. Okay. So Shah Banu, a woman after 45 years of her marriage, so she was divorced by her husband and he was not giving even maintenance. Okay. So according to Shariat law or Islamic law, only for 3 months, that means 90 days only after the date of divorce, maintenance will be provided. Providing there should not be any pregnancy and should not be any second marriage in that period. Okay, so after these things are satisfied, then only any person is entitled to 90 days of maintenance. But you understand, after 45 years of marriage and having 5 children, so is 90 days compensation or in the form of maintenance sufficient? That is the reason she went to Supreme Court of India on appeals and all. So then finally Supreme Court said, in case if there is a conflict between Islamic law and CRPC. Okay, so CRPC is also applying to Muslim women because it is India's criminal procedure code, right? So that is the reason we can apply section 125 of CRPC, which is making us to give maintenance. So amount of maintenance depends on the person's earning abilities and how much is the financial status he have and all. So based on that, we can award you the amount of maintenance. But again, Muslim people have raised their concerns and protested. Subsequently, Rajiv Gandhi government, to cool off the protests, they have passed Muslim Protection of Women Rights Act of 1986, saying that only Shariat law will apply. It is not CRPC which will apply to Islamic persons. Okay, so that is how this Shah Banu case also came into picture, because discrimination in terms of different religions and their women also. Okay, then curbing the practices that violate fundamental rights. Triple talaq, right? So triple talaq means if you just simply say talaq 3 times, it can be a ground for divorce, right? But recently, because of many things, okay, so even in WhatsApp also they're delivering talaq. So that is a clear discrimination, right? And it's a violation of fundamental rights like 14 in right to 21 also, Article 21. So that is the reason. So these things can be stopped in case if you have a secular principle. Then balancing religious freedom as well as social reforms. Famous cases, Shabarimala case. Okay, Indian Young Lawyers Association versus Union of India case of 2018, where it was clearly told, because on one hand there is a breach of your fundamental right of women in the form of Article 14 and Article 21 also, right to life, but on the other hand there is also 25 to 28, freedom of religion for that particular Devasthanam also, right? So they wanted to maintain their religious sanctity, but women also have the equal right to worship the god. So on this situation, what happens is Supreme Court also has maintained a balance, although they have said in favor of women, but still in this particular case also secular fabric is maintained. Okay, then in Sheni Singapore case also, right? So in Sheni Singapore also, women will not be allowed to enter into the premises, especially this is in Maharashtra near Shirdi. So Shani temple and all. So there also women were not allowed to perform that Abhishek and all these things. There are some restrictions, right? So in all these cases, it was said clearly to maintain and to maintain the essence of secularism. Then what are the measures needed? We have seen what are the problems and what are the interventions. But still, what are the measures needed means we need to have a uniform civil code, right? So where these type of issues will be addressed. At the same time, we need to ensure interfaith dialogue. For example, if there is a question, if they ask you, is the uniform civil code required or need of the, then what will be your statement? Will you say in favor or will you say against? Very good. So that is what, even Law Commission also said the same thing. So you need to say, although, okay, it is desirable, but it should, because it is a sensitive issue, it cannot be brought all at once. Okay, so it has to be settled. That is how, that means by consulting all the stakeholders of this process, then only a rightful dialogue can achieve the right time. Okay, that is what you can write. Then answer this question, because here it is only religious freedom of individual is wrong. Individual freedom in the form of 25 and community freedom in the form of 26 are guaranteed. Okay, so this statement is wrong. Then second, Indian secularism allows the state supported religious reform. True, right? So then Indian secularism focuses on both inter and intra-religious equality. True. Then under Indian secularism, state cannot aid any religious institution. No, it can, right? So that is what I told you. For example, if you have seen in 26 also, there are 4 categories of institutions. Completely aided by the state. For example, if you see TTD, these are all aided by the state only. Endowment department itself is there, right? So that means they're receiving some form of aid from the government. Some completely aided, partly aided, and some are managed but administered by the state and not getting any aid from the government. So these are 4 types of things which are covered under religious denominations of Article 26. So only 2, 1 and 4 are wrong and 2 and 3 are correct. Then next topic is digital arrest. So in the recent times in Man Ki Baat, okay, almost 115th version of Man Ki Baat, Prime Minister mentioned that there is increase in the prevalence of these digital arrest scams. So what does digital arrest means? A person will mimic like a law enforcement agent's person and he'll try to arrest, he'll say like, I'm having arrest warrant. So if you don't do this particular thing, I'm going to arrest you. In that fear, what happens? Generally, people will leak their sensitive information or they disclose. So sometimes this is leading to impersonification also. That is what the issue. So digital arrest. So if you have seen, what is the recent context I told you? Okay, Prime Minister in his 115th edition of Man Ki Baat has mentioned about this digital arrest. So then what is digital arrest? A situation where someone is stopped or restricted in their activities digitally. Okay, that means your account will be blocked temporarily and they'll say if you do this particular thing or if you pay certain amount, then only your account will be released. So that is what the main concept of digital arrest. Then you can see here, recently 65-year-old woman from Madhya Pradesh, from Indore. So she was subjected to fake interrogation for 5 days. And after that, what was the result? She has paid 46 lakh rupees. Then only in the name of arrest, okay, she was freed and also she had lost money. So many instances are happening. And if you have seen, interestingly, these cyber crimes across the world, they're amounting to $1.25 trillion of money. That much of money is getting lost in the name of cyber frauds or crimes. So this is one. Then what is digital arrest crime? It is a cyber fraud where they will try to show that they are the law enforcement agencies and they'll try to get the information. It can happen through a phone call, email or a messaging network also. They pressure the victims into making money or to do some illegal activities to prevent their arrest. So how do this work? Okay, so how do they do is generally there will be a phone call or a fake message will be there, then so they'll try to block that person. So it will be like a pressure on the person to pay. So this will result in payment of fraudulent activities. So they will say like, I have the warrant, in case if you don't do, I'm going to arrest you. So this will lead to erosion of faith, public faith among the authorities also. This is how the process is operating. Okay. So they'll try to project like the law enforcement agencies and they'll get the job done. So then what are the tips to avoid digital arrest? Okay. So what should be done? What were the negative impacts first, you tell me? In case if a digital arrest is there, what will be the negative impacts? Financial loss to the victim, right? So then, then psychological impact also. Then erosion of faith. So what generally the people will have the faith on the government, that will be eroded. They don't know. In future also if the government is asking them also, they'll feel that is a fraudulent activity and they don't generally believe in the government, right? So these are certain negatives which happen through digital arrest. Then what are the tips to avoid? So you need to verify. That is the reason for any account also you need to use two-factor authentication and all these things, right? So staying calm and alert and don't share any personal information. Okay, so it is good in case if you are not sharing any personal information online. And also before anyone is asking you like I'm having the warrant, I'm going to arrest you and all, you need to ask them questions, okay, to check whether they are actually valid or not. Then watching out for the red flags. So you should know, because most of the times any government official will not approach you through phone or video call audio saying that I'm going to arrest you and all. So what is a legal mechanism? That is what you need to watch it out. Then reporting suspicious calls like spams and all these things to the concerned authorities is also very much needed. So these are certain steps required. Then what are the government efforts already? So we have Cyber Swachhta Kendras established, creating some awareness campaigns, and also there is National Cyber Coordination Center. I4C means Indian Cyber Coordination Center. Along with this, state governments are controlling and they're trying to create more awareness. And CERT, Computer Emergency Response Team India, CERT, okay. So Computer Emergency Response Team India. So that is also coordinating. So most importantly, you have to keep in mind, this is a nodal agency of cyber crimes in India. Okay, and it is under Ministry of Home Affairs. Don't get confused with Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology. It is under Ministry of Home Affairs. Then it also provides alerts and information sharing. So I4C generally is maintaining a portal called Cyber Dost portal. Okay, in case of any alerts also you can easily have access. Then reporting mechanism. So to whom we have to report and how do we have to, and all these things are also given by the government. Then, so these are the different types of cyber threats. Okay, so this is important in your IS also. So first is identity theft. Okay, so they'll try to project like phishing, you know. Most of the times, okay, they'll say like I'm coming from this so and so website, or they'll try to project that they are the legitimate authorities. So identity will be concealed and they'll get the job done. So that is what one type of thing. And social engineering means, you know, to make you familiar. Okay, they'll try to project with a different account. So you know, most of the times boys are all portraying like a girl and they'll create in the name of a girl and all. Social engineering means to get the sensitive information revealed. Okay, they'll try to hide their identity That is what social engineering. Then malware, you know. Okay, malware means maliciousware. Okay, so generally that will harm the computers by entering and it will disrupt the functions. Then cyber stalking, Stubble, and bullying also we have. That means one who will harass for different things and all. So continuously that is cyber stalking. In financial fraud, so you know ransomware, all these things, right? So until unless you pay some ransom or some payment, your account will be blocked or you cannot have access to further things. And sometimes we'll also have denial of service attack. Okay, so denial of service means your network, okay, will be disrupted and you cannot have access to network. So these are certain types of cyber threats. Then next topic is related to Gaganyaan in Chandrayaan 4 and 5 also, right? So you need to know, already we have launched 3 Chandrayaan missions to the moon, but now Chandrayaan 4 is on the card along with Chandrayaan 5 also. Recently the dates for these missions were announced. And you know, with Gaganyaan, India is going to enter into elite group of countries of USA, Russia and China, where we are trying to send humans for the first time into the space. Okay, 3-member mission to stay 3 days in the low Earth orbit. That is the main objective of Gaganyaan mission. So Gaganyaan is expected to be conducted in 2026. So 3 flights will be conducted as part of Gaganyaan mission, out of which 2 are unmanned missions and 1 is manned mission. Okay. So, and then according to ISRO, Chandrayaan 4, where we are trying to return samples from the moon. Okay, so that is projected to be held in 2028. Okay, so that is what the ISRO is expecting. So you know already, Chandrayaan 3, we have landed on the southern pole of the moon for the first time. But in Chandrayaan 4, not only landing on the moon, we also wanted to take some samples back to the earth. Along with, we are also in the second phase of Chandrayaan 4, we are also trying to send humans to land on the moon. That is Chandrayaan 4 objectives. But what is Chandrayaan 5? I already discussed in SNT class with you. India and Japan are planning LUPEX mission, Lunar Polar Exploration Mission. That is what ISRO said as Chandrayaan 5. That means to explore the moon's polar surface, we are trying to send a mission by India and Japan. So India will be sending the lander and Japan will be giving the rover. So that is going to be Chandrayaan 5. Okay. So Chandrayaan 4 is sample return mission. Chandrayaan 5 is the collaboration between India and Japan. So with respect to polar exploration, this is what you have to keep in mind. Then, so with respect to space sector of India also, recently there is some good data because in the recent times we are trying to privatize the space. Okay, so in this domain they can ask you many things. So what is the space sector in India? Can we realize the benefits of privatization of space sector in India? These type of things can be asked because last year there is also Indian Space Policy 2023 released, and in that also they have highlighted the privatization of space. Okay, but if you see the size of space sector in India, it amounts to $8 billion. And if you have remembered, we wanted to make it to $60 billion by 2030. Right, that is what the target we have kept. Currently $8 billion to $60 billion by 2030. Right, so that is what. That means in terms of funding, we are 8th largest country. Okay, so and then we also have this much amount of money. Almost you can see 13,472 crores given for space sector in this union budget. Okay, so that is what the sectoral allocation. Then space sector is creating around 1 lakh jobs, you can say. Okay, so in the public and as well as private. And for every dollar produced in the space sector, we are getting an effect of $2.5 in return. That means if you are spending $1, you are getting $2.5 in return. Okay, that's a very good sign. And it is also 2.5 times more what the money you are spending. That is a good sign, right? And in the recent times, as we have discussed in Space Policy 2023 also, we have given the focus to establish more and more startups. Okay, so last year we have conducted a first private space. What is that launch? Vikram S, which was launched by Skyroot Aerospace from Hyderabad Space Agency. I told you, right? So that was also the beginning. Prarambh is a mission, if you have remembered, right? Then, so in terms of general launches of ISRO and private also, if you see communications satellites are amounting to 54%, navigation satellites 26%, and different interplanetary launches and all, they amount to 11%. That is what the sectoral division of space also. Then main industries who are supporting the space sector are telecom and information technology and administrative services. This is not that much required, but still it was highlighted. Then what are the challenges in Indian space sector? So competition in global market share. So if you see, we are just only 8% of the global share, very less, right? So competition is also very high. Then private sector participation is very much low, right? So in USA we have SpaceX, we have Blue Origin, like this many companies are there, but in India we don't have any big size private company also in terms of space. Then technology development and innovation is also at the nascent stage. We are not able to harvest. And then regulatory framework and licensing. So to start any mission or to start any startup in space sector also, we have a lot of regulatory constraints that is also hurting the development of private industry, which is in the nascent stage. So infrastructure and facilities are also very minimal. So ISRO is also famous for low cost budgetary missions, but still it is not the case with the private. Okay, so these are certain restrictions, challenges we have. So major reforms taken to address these challenges are first Indian Space Policy 2023, in which we try to highlight the role of private sector. Okay, so more private sector participation is welcomed, and for this we have New Space India Limited, an autonomous body set up under Department of Space in 2017. And then strategic proposals by Space Industry Association was also given. So here you can see for the financial year 2025, there is a substantial increase in the budget given for the space sector. So that is how we are trying to diversify the things also. Then in the Gaganyaan mission, what is a launch vehicle? Launch vehicle Mark 3. Okay, so that means it is a 3-stage launch vehicle with solid, liquid and indigenous cryogenic stage. Okay, indigenous cryogenic stage. Engine is CA-20. Okay, that is the name of our own indigenous cryogenic engine. Aim of the mission is to send 3 humans to the moon, to the space, and again return them back safely. Safe re-entry is also made. And orbital module is the main thing, which consists of crew module as well as service module. So only one big module will be there, which is the orbital module, inside which the above part will be the crew module where the 3 members will sit in, and to service them we have a service module. In case of any trouble in the service module, this will detach and this will safely return back to the earth. That is how it was designed. Then if we are successful, we join the group of USA, Russia and China, who already have successfully conducted manned missions into the space, right? So this is what you need to remember. Then answer this question. What is the answer? 1 and 3. So if you simply eliminate 2, read the second statement. It involves sending a 2-membered crew. From the beginning I am saying it is 3-member. Okay, so for 3 days, initially planned for 5 to 7, but we have cut short to 3 days only. So if you just remove second statement, only one option, 3 only. Okay. Then, so 16th BRICS summit. Let us understand. BRICS is important because India is also part of the BRICS grouping, as well as recently BRICS has expanded and many countries are also aspiring to join BRICS. Okay, in that context, BRICS is important. So first thing you need to remember is 16th BRICS summit happened in Russia. Okay, so in Kansan, that is a place in Russia where it happened. I'll show you on the map also. But before that, you need to remember 15th BRICS summit happened in Johannesburg in South Africa. Okay, Johannesburg. So at least you need to remember 1 year before, 1 year, present year, and the future upcoming. Okay, so that is how you need to remember. They can ask you. So recently this is a meeting and it was hosted by Russian president. Okay, so this is in the order it will happen actually. But because of some financial difficulties, Brazil this time has skipped, okay, hosting, and after South Africa it should start in the alphabetical order only. Okay, so that is what the order. Then 15th summit happened in 2023 in Johannesburg of South Africa. So in the recent times, you know, except this Argentina initially signaled to join BRICS, but later on it has withdrawn its decision to join BRICS. So who are all the recent entries? 5 countries are originally part of BRICS, right? In 2006, J. Mo Nielsen, okay, this person has given, okay, Goldman Sachs company, that person gave the name of BRICS, okay. Initially, it is a 4-member grouping, Brazil, Russia, India, China only. 2010, South Africa also joined, and now another 5 countries joined: Iran, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Ethiopia, as well as United Arab Emirates, okay. So UAE, Iran, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Ethiopia, Egypt, okay. So these are the 5 countries which recently have joined. Argentina was not a member. They may trap you again. It has initially given as consent, but later on withdrawn. So now let us understand what is the significance of BRICS. So BRICS as a grouping has formed or established mainly to counter Western dominance, okay. So all these are emerging economies. They don't want Western dominance because, you know, all the institutions like UN, World Bank, IMF were dominated by Western countries. So they don't want this to happen. So they have formed a separate platform of emerging countries or economies in the form of BRICS. So if you see the significance, so when a question was asked in GS2 mains IR section, please try to write these type of data to highlight what is its importance. So BRICS as a grouping hold 42% of world population, that means 5 countries, not including the recent entries. 30% of world's territory in terms of area, 23% of GDP, and 18% of world trade. Okay, so this is what the significance. Then, what is its aim? India and China together almost 0.5% you can say population, right? And then aim is to challenge the economic and political monopoly of the West. Okay, so that they don't want economic dominance of the West and political dominance of the West also on multilateral platforms. That is the main objective why they have formed BRICS. Then what is the importance? So if you see economic cooperation and trade. So in the recent times also, if you have seen, among the 5 countries of BRICS also there is increased trade, which is a positive sign showing that there is a good cooperation among all the countries of BRICS. At least we are trying to reverse this. Okay, so that means Western dominance. Intra-BRICS trade has increased in the recent times and also reduced dependence on Western financial institutions. And there is also own economic resilience. That means we know, like in case if you are depending on the Western countries, what they'll do. Today, if you have seen, India was also threatened with sanctions by USA, economic sanctions. That means if we want to buy anything from Iran in the form of oil, or if we wanted to take any defense from Russia also, what happens? US will impose immediately CAATSA, okay, countering American adversaries through Sanctions Act, CAATSA. Okay, so these were American adversaries means who? Russia, Iran, North Korea. So if anyone trades with these countries, then US will threaten you with sanctions. That happened in the case of S-400 missile system also. If you have remembered, we have imported this from Russia, the most powerful defense missile system of India, right? So we have taken this because we have China in the immediate neighborhood, spending thousands of dollars. But what happened? At that point of time, Russia, when it is also signaling to sell this to India, US said you cannot import this from Russia. Okay, when we are getting cheap oil from Iran, at that time also US said you cannot. So what is benefit for India's economy and India's interest? We have the full freedom because we are a sovereign country. Who are they to threaten us actually, right? So these things will increase if you are depending on these countries, okay, or these groupings for their loans and other mechanisms. Then inclusive growth is also much required. So you know, after Russia's withdrawal from SWIFT, you know, SWIFT is a messaging network of financial transactions between 2 countries also. There's a disruption in the global supply chains and all. So that is how many things are changing. So BRICS offers an alternative platform to these things. Then, you know, as an alternative to World Bank, we have established New Development Bank, that is a BRICS Bank in 2014 with Fortaleza Declaration. Fortaleza Declaration of BRICS has created this New Development Bank. So where was it headquartered? Shanghai in China. Okay, New Development Bank was headquartered in Shanghai of China. So it provides infrastructure, okay, and also it also provides money for sustainable development, these type of things for not only BRICS countries, for all other countries, developing countries also. Okay, not only confined with BRICS. So then there is also contingent reserve arrangement. So you know, suddenly like how we have contingency fund, okay, for any urgent situations and all to maybe met. Same is the case here also. $100 billion is kept with as a contingent reserve with the BRICS countries. Okay, in case of any situation, any member country, if they turn default or they again become bankrupt, also they can avail this money as the short-term liquidity crisis to handle that situation. Also, they can take this. So this is a safety net, and also it protects you against any external shocks in case of any global supply chain disruptions or anything. Also, this can help you out. Then what is the political influence and also how it is helping? BRICS, it is also a political bloc, okay? Because, Brazil in South America, Russia in Eurasia region, India and China from this, and South Africa from African region. So that means entirely multilateral world, you can say. That means from different continents we have representation, so it is becoming more a inclusive platform. Then advocating for multipolar world. US and China wants to establish a unipolar world. Like US want to maintain its hegemony, China wants to maintain its hegemony. Okay, but India is always advocating multipolar world, not unipolar or bipolar world. Then greater representation in institutions like UN, World Bank as well as IMF. So in UNSC we want permanent membership, right? So we are aspiring, and G4 countries or the countries aspiring for getting UNSC permanent membership, out of which we have India, Japan, Germany, Brazil. So if you see, India and Brazil both are part of BRICS. Okay, so that means they're asking for membership in UN Security Council, permanent membership, not non-permanent. So technical cooperation also, right? We have big science and technology innovation platforms and all. So in that way also we are collaborating with all member countries. So, but there are still some challenges also in BRICS as a grouping. So first main thing is, although India and China are members, we don't have good relations among members. Okay, that is also one main thing. So economic disparities is one, geopolitical rivalries is one, increasing dominance of China. So it is trying to encircle India using string of pearls, or through Belt and Road Initiative also it is trying to maintain its dominance in different parts of the world, along with relationship with Western countries. If you have seen Brazil, okay, in all these countries, South Africa, they're also increasing their relations with Western. On one side, they're also part of BRICS. And then slow progress on institutional reforms. So there is no much progress we have achieved. So these are certain challenges. If we can overcome, then BRICS can become an alternative platform to Western groupings. Then what are the recent highlights of the 16th BRICS Summit? Means you can see, central theme is everyone is disillusioned with the Western-led global governance. So they don't want, because most of the times in World Bank and IMF also, the directors generally come from either USA or European countries only. There is no representation given to other persons, even in the Security Council as well as General Assembly also. So this has intensified after invasion of Ukraine by Russia. Then BRICS was also trying to reduce the reliance on US dollar, and SWIFT. SWIFT is nothing but a messaging network which will give you the list of financial transactions that happen between two countries. So this is also what we wanted. That is the reason, if you see, all the BRICS countries are also interested in de-dollarization. We don't want heavy dependence on dollar. Okay, so because of its reason. Then you can see this red colored mark region is the cousin. Okay, so where this is in Russia. Why this was chosen? Because this is going to be the third capital of Russia in terms of emerging economy. So it is going to be the third capital, as well as it is multi-ethnic, multi-religious, significant area also, where there is a like Christianity as well as Islamic religion predominant over that particular region. So it is so much important in cultural as well as economic interests of Russia. That is why it was chosen as the host, okay, of the 16th BRICS Summit. Then see this question. A mains question was asked regarding BRICS in 2014. To show, I have given this. India has recently signed. See, in 2014, New Development Bank was created. I just told you. In the same year, a question was asked. 2014 only. Okay. So India has recently signed to become a founding member of New Development Bank and also Asian Infrastructure Bank. AIIB. It was a China's-led bank, right? So 2017 it was established as a counter to ADB, Asian Development Bank, which was led by Japan. Okay. So how will the role of two banks be different? Discuss the significance of these two banks for India. In this BRICS bank, or NDB, we have equal membership. Okay, that means every country has the same voting rights, equal budget, everything same, because all 5 countries same share is there. But in AIIB, China is holding maximum share. Second largest shareholder is India. Okay, so but this was established mainly to counter ADB, which was actually launched by Japan in 1966 only. It was actually formalized in 2017. India is the second largest shareholder in AIIB. But these two are also seen as an alternative to World Bank and IMF also. Okay, so these are developmental banks. Mainly in the name you can see Infrastructure Bank, AIIB also. Then in the recent times, this is also a news related to BRICS. So Venezuela also is trying to get membership in BRICS. Okay, so but this bid of Venezuela to get membership in BRICS was stopped by Brazil itself, because again local geopolitics are playing out here. So they don't want Venezuela to get membership in BRICS. So you can expect a question in future. Then next topic of discussion is regarding COP16 to UN CBD. Okay. So what is the point of discussion here means, especially with respect to biodiversity conversation. Okay. So like in 1992, there is a Rio Earth Summit happened in Brazil, Rio de Janeiro of Brazil. So 3 major environmental conventions were the outcomes of this particular summit. UNFCCC, United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, UNCBD, United Nations Convention on Biological Diversity, and UNCCD, United Nations Convention to Combat Desertification. Okay, so 3 types of conventions, very important conventions, one in climate change, one in biological diversity, and another to combat desertification was signed here, right? So, and like every year, in case of climate change, every year one summit happens in November and December period. So COP29 of UNFCCC is going to be held in Azerbaijan, Baku is the place. But here, every 2 years once COP16 will happen. This COP to CBD will happen every 2 years once. And now it was planned in Colombia. Okay, Cali is the place where it is going to be held. So, but what is the main thing we need to remember here is, there is a point of discussion because this is a very first summit that happened after 2022 Kunming-Montreal Biodiversity Framework. Okay, so what is this Kunming? Kunming is the city in China. Okay, Montreal is a place where this meeting was hosted actually in Canada. But why it was actually Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework? Because it is also a very significant agreement signed in the context of biological diversity. Because in this particular agreement, we have pledged to conserve at least 30% of the earth. Okay, so from in terms of biological diversity conservation by 2030. That means to save 30% of biological diversity by 2030. That is the target we have kept. Okay, so you can say like Paris Agreement in terms of climate change. This is also equally important in terms of biological diversity. But Kunming, why it was named? Because although it was held in Montreal, Canada, but it was hosted by China. Okay, host country is China. It was actually held in Canada. That is the reason 2 names were added, and Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework is the name. So after this legally binding agreement signed in 22, this was the first time that CBD countries are meeting in the name of COP16 in Colombia, right? So what is CBD? I told you, right? CBD is very much important because it as a convention has 3 main objectives. So one is conservation of biodiversity, second, sustainable use of all the biodiversity resources, and fair and equitable sharing of the benefits from the resources. So these are the 3 main goals of the CBD convention, right? Then, so here you can see it was opened for signature in 92. It came into force in the year 93 because generally after signing, ratification also has to be done, and for any convention, minimum members have to ratify also. Ratify means they also have to pass their own laws in their domestic territory to comply with the international law. In the same way, India also have enacted Biodiversity Act of 2002 to comply with UNCBD. Okay, so under Biodiversity Act, we have created a 3-tier authority. So there will be National Biodiversity Authority, State Biodiversity Authority, and District Biodiversity Boards will be established. So 3-tier. like how we have Panchayat Raj, local government and all, same in terms of biodiversity conservation. So this National Biodiversity Authority will be headed directly by the Prime Minister. Okay, so it will decide. Then, for example, if any foreigner wants to conduct research with respect to biodiversity in India, it is this National Biodiversity Authority which has to give the permission. Otherwise, you cannot conduct any research here. Then, State Biodiversity Authority will be held by the Chief Minister, District Biodiversity Boards by District Magistrate. And also, as part of this, People's Biodiversity Registers also will be created. Okay, so these are the most important things which we have to keep in mind. Then ratification, once if you legally sign, okay, that means signing is different. When we are just deliberating, we generally sign. But after signing any agreement in the international law, we need to pass on domestic law also. That means we are ratifying to it. Okay. So if you can see here, how many countries? 196 countries have ratified. That is the reason it was in force. But US is the only country which will sign every agreement, but it will not ratify. That is the main problem of this particular agreement. Okay. Even in the UNFCCC or in Kyoto Protocol, these type of things also, US will sign, but it will not ratify. If you are ratifying, means you are legally binding to that agreement, right? So they don't want to comply to this particular law. Then India is also a member, and its secretariat is in Montreal, Canada. Okay, Montreal Protocol is also signed in this particular place. So then three main objectives. This is very much important. Okay, so in environment also you'll be studying CBD. First one is conservation of biodiversity, sustainable use of genetic resources, and third is fair and equitable sharing of benefits arising from the resources. So that means you need to use them in a conservative manner, sustainable use also, and fair and equitable sharing. That means whatever the resources you get, okay, from the biodiversity, those have to be shared equitably and in a fair way. For example, see, if you have any traditional knowledge regarding one particular plant or species, then it is the idea of the tribes or any traditional people, right? So that means you cannot take this knowledge and you cannot get the benefit for yourself. You need to pass on the benefit, or you need to give a share in the benefit to these communities who actually hold that particular knowledge also. That is what fair and equitable sharing of benefits arising out from the resources, right? Then, so we have two main protocols. See, convention is a larger ambit and protocol is a thing which is specifically targets. For example, if you see, this is UNFCCC, right? In UNFCCC, we have Kyoto Protocol or we have Paris Agreement. Like this, we have many things, right? That means this entirely is trying to tackle the climate change, but whereas Kyoto Protocol is specifically trying to tackle the climate change by curbing the greenhouse gas emissions. That means specific target will be there. Same is the case here also. You have UN CBD with the above targets, but still we have Cartagena Protocol and Nagoya Protocol. That means specific targets are given. Okay. So Cartagena Protocol is trying to address the issues from living modified organisms or genetically modified organisms. That is the only thing. That means, in case if you are modifying the gene of any organism, it may have some environmental impact also. So, or it may become a threat to the biological diversity. So, what will be the impact and how to address that impact is part of Cartagena Protocol. But whereas Nagoya Protocol is talking about fair and equitable sharing of genetic resources arising out from the biodiversity and related conservation. So, this Nagoya is a place in Canada and Cartagena was also signed in 2000. Okay, so these are named after the places in which they were signed. Right. So, these are two main things which you need to remember. Then this entire picture is very much important because this is giving you a good idea of all the environmental conventions, important conventions, everything covered in this particular diagram itself. Okay, let's start with 1971 Ramsar Convention. Ramsar Convention with respect to conservation of wetlands. So what is a wetland? What is a wetland? Any temporary or permanent area, freshwater or brackish or marine water, permanently filled or temporarily filled with water, not having a depth below 6 meters. Okay, so if it is having a deep or depthness of 6 meters minimum, then we can call it as a wetland. Okay, wetland can even be a rice or paddy field also, which is temporarily or permanently filled with water. To have that sperm, like germination and all, what we'll do generally, we'll fill it with water, right, for some time. So then it will also be under wetland category only, right? To conserve the wetlands, we have signed Ramsar Convention. Ramsar is a city of Iran on which it was, in which particular place it was signed. So it was signed on 2nd February 1971. That is the reason we mark 2nd February as the World Wetland Day. Okay, and we have currently 85 wetlands in India. Every wetland is important. Please go through either state by state or one day 5 wet max, you can easily remember, right? Then 1972 marks the first conference with respect to environment. In the entire environment context, first conference happened at the global level in the form of United Nations Convention on Human Environment as well as Development. That is also called as Stockholm Conference. So to which our Prime Minister Indira Gandhi has attended, and after attending that conference only, she brought this Wildlife Protection Act of 1972, and Project Tiger was also initiated in 1972. So that is the impact of she attending the Stockholm Conference. And two major outcomes of Stockholm Conference are establishing UNEP, United Nations Environment Program, which is the environmental wing of UN as a separate agency, which was now headquartered in Nairobi, Kenya. And second outcome of Stockholm Conference is celebration of June 5th as the World Environmental Day. That is the reason why we celebrate, because Stockholm Conference was also held on 5th June in 1972. That is the reason every year we are celebrating 5th June as the Environment Day. Okay, that is the outcome of 1972 Convention for Protection of World Cultural Heritage or Natural Heritage or Human and Development we call. Then 1973 CITES. So CITES means Convention on International Trade on Endangered Species. So this is also called as Washington Convention. This was originally signed in 1969 with the help of UNEP and all. But later what actually happened is, in 1973 it came into force. It was administered by UNEP in the recent times. But in spite of signing in 1969, members have to ratify and all. That is the reason it was in 1973 it came into force. That means any endangered species, if they are getting traded between two countries, they may also pose a threat to the entire species and their conservation, right? That is the reason. So no trade in endangered species should threaten their survival. For that reason, we have CITES Convention, which is also called Washington Treaty. Why this was important? Because this year 2023-24 period marks 50 years of completion of CITES. Okay, so like how you have this Wildlife Protection Act, Schedule 1, Schedule 2 and all, same way CITES also maintains a list of endangered species, Appendix 1, Appendix 2 and all. So it is very much important for you to remember, right? Then next is 1973 MORPOL Convention. This is with respect to prevention of ship pollution or pollution from ships, marine pollution. Very important, MORPOL Convention. In the year 1973 it was signed, but it came into force in the year 1978. Okay, marine pollution. Then you have 1979 Long Range Air Transboundary Pollution. This was not actually in force. It did not come into ratification. Okay, you did not remember. Then most important is 1985 Vienna Convention. Okay, so Vienna Convention is a larger, as I just told you, convention is a larger ambit. Okay, so in which we can again go for a protocol which specifically targets one issue. Okay, Vienna Convention is with respect to ozone layer protection, in which we have signed a small protocol, okay, or a subunit of it called Montreal Protocol to prevent ozone depleting substances. Okay, so what are ozone depleting substances? Which harms the ozone layer, stratospheric ozone. What are those? CFCs, chlorofluorocarbons, HCFCs, hydrofluorocarbons. Okay, so so we have bromines, we have many things are there. So these are all the things which deplete the ozone, which is there in the stratospheric layer, which is protecting us from harmful UV radiations, right? This is one. And you have to keep in mind, Montreal Protocol is the only protocol in the present times, which got universal ratification. Means all 197 countries have signed and ratified Montreal Protocol. Only environmental convention to get universal ratification so far is Montreal Protocol. Okay. Then as part of Montreal Protocol only, there is an amendment called Kigali Amendment in the recent times in 2016. What is this Kigali Amendment? in Montreal Protocol, we are trying to phase out ozone depleting substances like CFCs, HCFCs especially, methyl bromines and all. So what actually happens is, in the place of CFC and HCFC, we brought hydrofluorocarbons, okay, HFCs. These HFCs are not ozone depleting, but they intensify global warming. Okay, that means ozone depletion తగ్గించడానికి తీసుకొచ్చింది. It is not depleting ozone, but it is increasing global warming. So to decrease or to phase out HCFC కాదు, HFC అంటే ozone depleting అది. HFC, hydrofluorocarbon, we have signed Kigali Amendment to Montreal Protocol in the year 2016. Okay, so keep this in mind. Now we have 1989 Basel Convention. Basel Convention is with respect to transboundary movement of hazardous waste. So, ఈ కన్వెన్షన్ ఏంటి అంటే, ఫర్ ఎగ్జాంపుల్, ఇఫ్ వన్ కంట్రీ, ఓకే, సో యూ మైట్ హ్యావ్ సీన్ S3 మూవీ ఆర్ సంథింగ్, రైట్? Surya, S3 movie, I guess. So what happens? Biomedical waste will be dumped from Australia into India, right? So that means that is transboundary movement of hazardous waste. That means not only biomedical waste, any plastic waste or any radioactive waste, okay? So unfortunately, radioactive waste is not covered in this convention, okay? But any type of hazardous waste, if it is trying to again like transmitted or transferred from one country to another country, then that is a crime, okay, under this particular convention. To stop that, we have signed this. Otherwise, what happens? Sometimes voluntarily also, sometimes countries will be forced to buy, right? So those countries which doesn't have money will get money in the form of dumping of waste in their territories, right? These developed countries want to discard the waste, so they can do that by paying some money also to the developing countries. So to prevent this, this was signed. Then we also have 1992 convention. In 1992, as we have discussed now, UN Convention on Biological Diversity, UN Convention on Framework on Climate Change we have, 1994 to combat desertification we have, right? Desertification means to stop spreading of the desert, or to convert the arid region or also less fertile region or soil again into, to restore it to the normalcy. That is the main thing, right? Then we also have this Rotterdam Convention, 1998, very important. So Rotterdam Convention means with respect to prior informed consent. That means if you wanted to dump any of the hazardous chemical, okay, so or if you wanted to transfer any hazardous chemical, you need to get the informed consent. That means you need to inform the country that this is going to be a harmful impact. In case if you trade or if you take this type of chemical, then knowingly if any country gives permission, then that is their choice. Prior informed consent in dumping of hazardous chemicals. That is what Rotterdam Convention in 1998. Then we have 1998, this convention is with respect to environmental matters but not in force. Then 2001, Stockholm Convention, very important with respect to persistent organic pollutants. Okay, so what is persistent organic pollutants? POP, any pollutant which is released which stays in the atmosphere for long, okay, persistent, that means they don't easily get degraded, they will be there in the atmosphere for long, okay, becoming harmful for the environment. That is what we call Stockholm Convention on POPs, persistent organic pollutants. Then above which in 2013 we have Minamata Convention with respect to mercury pollution. So these are all the important environmental conventions. ఇవి గుర్తుపెట్టుకుని, ఇయర్స్ గుర్తుపెట్టుకుని, ఆబ్జెక్టివ్స్ గుర్తుపెట్టుకుంటే అట్లీస్ట్ 1-2 questions you can solve for sure, okay? So not beyond this. Then, so as part of UN CBD, there is also one Aichi targets, okay? So Aichi targets were a group of 20 targets that was signed in 2010. Nagoya lo jarigindi kada protocol. At that point of time, in 2010, COP10 to UN CBD, when it was held in Nagoya, we have kept 20 targets to conserve biodiversity in the name of Aichi. Aichi is a place in Japan where it was signed. So that is the reason it was named as this. So you know, 20 ambitious targets, yet achievable. We didn't achieve these targets so far. We wanted to achieve these targets to conserve biodiversity. Then last year, as I told you, 2022, last to last year, convening Montreal Biodiversity Framework. It was adopted in COP15 to UN CBD, and the main goal is to conserve 30% of the planet's biodiversity by 2030. Okay, so 30% to restore biodiversity by 2030. Then what are the methods generally of biodiversity conservation? What are the methods to conserve biodiversity? In situ, ex situ. So these are the two methods. Okay, in situ means on the site. That means wherever the animal lives, there only if you are trying to conserve them. Like for example, national park, wildlife sanctuary, biosphere reserves. That is the natural habitat of the animal, right? There only if you are taking some measures to conserve. That is what we call in situ conservation. Ex situ conservation means if you are taking the animal out of its habitat. Zoological park, botanical garden, seed bank, gene bank. So these are the ex situ conservations. Okay. So these are the two methods of conservation of biodiversity, right? Then what are the levels of biodiversity? Alpha, beta, gamma. Okay. So what is this alpha diversity? Within one particular species, the diversity. For example, humans. We are all one particular species only, but still we have gene diversity, right? That means because of diversity in gene, we are all different. We are not alike, right? That is what alpha diversity. Beta diversity means between two different species. Humans, elephants, they are different species. And why the diversity is there? That is what beta diversity we call. And gamma diversity means between ecosystems. Forest ecosystem is different and aquatic ecosystem is different, or grassland ecosystem is different. So between ecosystems, if you compare it as gamma diversity. So this is how you are going to measure the biodiversity, right? So species richness and species evenness we call. Species, for example, if there is a question, you should answer this. I'll explain what is this, but try to understand. So these are the static parts of your biodiversity, just for a revision. So species evenness means, for example, in one situation, there are 3 elephants, 4 tigers, and let us consider 5 birds. Okay, in one particular ecosystem. Okay, then in another situation, there are 10 elephants and 2 birds. Which is more biodiverse rich ecosystem among these two? A or B? It's not B. Okay, so it's A clearly, because species evenness. See, one species if it is there, it will try to maintain other species also. Evenness should be there. It should not be only in the terms of number. Evenness means multiple species should exist together. That is how biodiversity will thrive here, right? So always it is species evenness which will help in biodiversity rather than species richness. That is the reason tiger is also considered as keystone species. Keystone. ఎందుకంటే టైగర్ ఇప్పుడు లేదనుకోండి, డీర్ పాపులేషన్ ఏమవుతుంది, ఎక్కువైపోతుంది. సో ఇట్ ఈస్ ఆల్సో కీపింగ్ చెక్ ద టైగర్ పాపులేషన్, ద డీర్ పాపులేషన్. కీస్టోన్ అంటే, సో ఫర్ ఎగ్జాంపుల్ ఇప్పుడు మనకి బిల్డింగ్ కి వెయిట్ మొత్తం కూడా ఆర్చ్ లాగా ఉంటుంది, దాని మీద ఉంటుంది చూసారు, దీని కీస్టోన్ అంటాం, ద ఫౌండేషన్. సేమ్ ఇస్ ద రోల్ ప్లేడ్ బై టైగర్ ఆల్సో ఇన్ ఎకోసిస్టమ్. ఓకే, సో keystone species, umbrella species, indicator species, flagship species ఇలాంటివి ఉంటాయి. that you will understand later. Then next point of discussion is stubble burning, right? So you know all the year it will, this especially in the winter season, it will be in news, because you know stubble burning is creating lot of pollution in Delhi, in surrounding region of NCR, right? What is stubble actually? The leftover crop residue, right? So that means if you are going for the next crop, before that the last crop residue will be the stubble. So what happens is, normally what you should do is you need to plug, okay, or you need to plug manually, or you need to again use the machines to pluck it off. But what happens, it is a costly affair. Engaging manual labor or taking the help of machines will increase your cost. Simply what the farmers are doing in Punjab and Haryana, they're letting off. Okay, that means when they generally burn it, what happens? Entirely the remnants of the past crop will be burnt, and the soil also will get some fertility. Okay, so that is how they're preparing it for the next crop. But this is creating a problem for surrounding regions, because Delhi, geographically situated near the Indo-Gangetic Plain region, is surrounded by mountains. So that air is also not getting out of that particular range. Okay, so again it's becoming like a chamber. So for example, if you see, if this is a situation, if it is entirely encircled by mountains, so there is no way escape. Okay, so that is the main problem. So entire gas is getting filled here and concentrated, because of which the air quality is getting disturbed in Delhi. So that is the main problem. So with respect to this, Supreme Court has said, in the context of stubble burning, if this is again persisting, then it's a clear violation of right to free and clean environment. which is guaranteed under Article 21 to its citizens as well as foreigners. Because Article 21 is not only there for the citizens of India, but for foreigners also. It was right to life with personal liberty. So it was a mark of the Supreme Court. That is the context. Then it also mentioned that the role played by Commission for Air Quality Management was also not sufficient. Okay, so this was actually created after the Supreme Court intervention only. You can cite this body also as a result of judicial activism in India, right? So because of Delhi air pollution only in 2021, Supreme Court said you need to pass a particular law and create a body. So, and do remember, this body only works with respect to Delhi and NCR region. It doesn't deal with entire air pollution in India. Only with respect to Delhi and NCR, this will take care about. Okay. So then it also questioned about the Section 15 of Environmental Protection Act of 1986. So what are the measures you are going to take under this to prevent the pollution in Delhi? So that is what the question Supreme Court has asked to the respective governments. So now in this regard, let us understand what is stubble burning. So practice of, see here, intentionally setting fire, okay, to the crop residue or the stubble that remains on the fields after the harvest of the grains. Okay, so in the form of rice, wheat, and cereal cultivation, whatever the leftover crop is there, that if you are burning up, it is stubble burning. So normally it is found in North India, especially in Punjab and Haryana, because rice and wheat cultivation is very high in that particular region. Then why? To quickly clear, okay, without much cost. So that is the easiest way also. But what happens here? That is a main problem, right? Carbon monoxide, nitrous oxides, okay, ozone, these type of harmful pollutants are getting released into the environment. That's the main challenge. So next, if you see reasons for stubble burning, cost effectiveness, because you need not just, if you lit off the fire, then it is easy to clear the field. No, it is also time saving, and there is no alternative also. No easy alternative, you can say, right? In the recent times, government is promoting happy seeder and turbo seeder machines, okay, so that they can pluck off that particular leftover crop that is being sold. Okay, so what they're doing is to stop the stubble burning. After using these machines, they're giving on subsidies also, or on rent also they can take these machines. So after the plucking off, that residue will be there, no, that residue is being taken to the biogas plant. So that residue is also generating some income to the farmers. So in that way, they are generating the waste to wealth. Okay, from the crop residue, they are generating biogas. So in that way, we are generating a fuel, as well as it is helping in curbing the environmental pollution. And then why Delhi is getting more polluted? Because it is situated in the Indo-Gangetic Plain region, as well as it is also releasing a lot of smoke, because there is no way of escaping from the Delhi, right? Then next is industrial and vehicular emissions. That is also one reason, and large scale construction dust is also one reason for high pollution in Delhi. Okay, so generally if you see, when there is high pollution, odd even formula, these things will be imposed in Delhi. So odd number plates and even number plates, I have to take an alternate number and all. That is also one. And Delhi also experiences temperature inversion. Generally temperature has to increase with altitude. So 1 degree for 6.5 meters. Okay, so that is the general temperature increase. But in winters, it will reverse. That means it will reverse. That means temperature inversion will be happening in Delhi. That is also one reason why cool air is getting trapped into the pollution. Then Commission for Air Quality Management. This is a statutory body, very important. Okay, they can ask you the statutory body created under this particular act, same act only, name of the act is also same, but it is confined only to Delhi and NCR region. It functions only in this region. Okay, it doesn't have the jurisdiction outside these regions in other areas. Ozone depleting gases and global warming GHGs are different. Ozone depleting gases need not accentuate global warming, but ozone depleting substances also sometimes increase global warming. Need not be the case situation all the time. Okay, so what is its objective is better coordination with respect to how to tackle the air pollution and all. That is the main objective of this particular thing. And most importantly, you have to keep this in mind. Okay, the CAQM or Commission on Air Quality Management will implement this graded response action plan. Okay, graded response action plan is an innovative plan only implemented in Delhi and surrounding areas to completely curb the air pollution. So, what are the powers that this act have is restricting the activities which can impact the air quality. At the same time, they can issue some guidelines, issue some directions, and also impose and collect environmental compensation if you pollute anything. Like for example, there is a ban on firecrackers. So, but suddenly if you breach also, there can be some penalties imposed. That money can be used again to improve the air quality. So, if you have seen smoke guns, these type of things are insured. Even last year, artificial rain was also induced in Delhi. Okay, if there is rain, so it will decrease the amount of pollution, right? So that is how they're trying to tackle this issue of pollution. So next topic is, as we have discussed already, India and Oman. Okay, so they have conducted their naval exercise in the coast of Goa in the recent times. And why this is important? Because they are asking the questions regarding the exercises conducted by India also. First thing you need to know the location of Oman. Okay, so if you see, this is a country of West Asia, especially in the Arabian Peninsula. And here you know what is this body and what is this body. This is Persian Gulf, right? Persian Gulf, and this is Gulf of Oman. These two are connected by the Strait of Hormuz. Okay, so strait is one which connects two larger water bodies, right? Then here you have, this is Red Sea, and this is Gulf of Aden, and this is Red Sea. These two are connected by Bab el Mandeb, that is a strait. Okay, so these things you need to remember. Okay, so then if you see here, so Oman is strategically located because you can see all the ships passing through here, or these things coming from here. Okay, so they are very much important and is strategically located here. And Oman is the very first country which India is having, like with which India is having these naval exercises or army exercises from the many years. So the India in the West Asian countries also, we have this relation with Oman only. Okay, so it's somewhat less disturbed country also in the history. So if you see here, YN News, India and Oman bilateral naval exercise. Okay, so the name of the exercise is Nasim Al Bar. Okay, so it was held in Goa. It was initiated in 1993, and it was first Gulf country to initiate a bilateral exercise with India. Right. So then you can see Al Naza. Naza means army exercise, and Eastern which means Air Force. That means generally it is very rare that we have three types of exercises with one country. Except like US, UK and many countries we don't have. Generally we have either Air Force, Navy or Army exercises only. But very rarely we have all the three with one country, that is Oman here. You need to remember all the three names. Okay. So then who are the participants from India? INS Trident and also Dornier Maritime Patrol Aircraft. These are the participants from India in this exercise. Then Malabar. So you know Malabar became Quad exercise in the recent times, right? So it was initially only a US and India bilateral exercise, especially in terms of Navy. But later Japan has joined and now Australia also has joined. Now it became completely full-fledged Quad exercise. Okay, so you know what is Quad? Quadrilateral grouping, 4 countries, India, Australia, Japan and USA. So what is the main objective of Quad? Free, open, inclusive Indo-Pacific. Okay, although they wanted to counter China and its hegemony, they are not stating it openly. They are saying free, open, inclusive Indo-Pacific. Okay, so that is the indirect implication of China only, right? So global order. Then let us see Eastern Malabar exercise. It was held in Visakhapatnam. Okay, this time it was held in Visakhapatnam. So participants are 4 countries again. It started in 92 as a bilateral exercise between India and USA. In 2015, Japan joined. In 20, Australia has joined. Okay, so now it is a Quad exercise. What is the main objective? SAGAR, security and growth for all in the region. That was an initiative initiated by the Prime Minister of India. SAGAR means security and growth for all in the region. Okay, so that is one initiative. The next is the Moonlight space program. So what is this issue? What is this initiative means? It is an initiative of European Space Agency. So like we are trying to send different missions to the moon. Many countries are doing that, right? So to establish full-fledged communication system on the moon and to have communication between the Earth and the moon, this program was intended. Okay, so that means to establish a series of communication satellites between moon and Earth covering 4 lakh kilometers of distance. So we wanted to establish 5 satellite constellation so that we can have communication between moon and the Earth. That is the main objective of this program by European Space Agency. So with respect to telecommunication, navigation on the moon, that is the main objective. Okay, so it consists of 5 satellites, 1 for high data communication and 4 for navigation. And you can see the distance is 4 lakh kilometer network connecting the moon and Earth, and coverage is especially moon southern pole. Okay, that is the main object of study. Then significance is it will help in satellite navigation, video conferencing, data sharing, etc. And it will also enable precise lunar landings, okay, accurate landings at the same time, surface mobility, high speed, low latency communication. Latency means the time taken to browse, okay, so that should decrease over a period of time and you should have high speed browsing, okay, that is why every generation will have low latency compared to the previous one. So reduce future lunar mission costs also, that is the main objective of this particular mission. Not only European Space Agency, many countries like you can see other space agencies like Telspazio, UK, Italian, NASA and JAXA, okay, these also have joined with European Space Agency. Then global, they also wanted to develop this global lunar navigation system, like how GPS is there, okay, on Earth. They also wanted to develop this by a series of communication navigation satellites, and it is expected to fully get deployed by 2030. That is also one thing, right? Then, so we have Durgesh Aranya Zoological Park. Okay, so why this was in news? Because this is in Himachal Pradesh and it was recognized as the very first zoological park in India to get Green Council, okay, certification. We have Green Council building code. That means whichever the buildings or whichever the architectural things which generally have that sustainable setup, okay, that means in terms of energy or if they're maintaining the clean or green type of things, that is what we generally have, eco-friendly rating, Indian Green Building Code. Okay, so this is a initiative of CIA, that means Confederation of Indian Industries. It was initiated in 2021 and it is headquartered in Hyderabad itself. Okay, so whichever the buildings that follow a sustainable way of life and which generally ensures that energy conservation, these type of things are already practiced. So for them, they will be giving a certification of rating system. That is the main objective. So it became the very first zoo in India. That is the reason why I have chosen this topic. Okay. So and you have to keep in mind the main objective of ensuring sustainable code here is to make Himachal Pradesh as the tourism capital in terms of sustainability also. Right. Then, so what is Green Building Council? Okay, it was established in 2001 as part of CIA, Confederation of Indian Industries, and it is headquartered in Hyderabad. What is its role? Leading body for green building certification as well as sustainable architecture. Then services, provide certification rating systems for eco-friendly buildings. Okay, and global representation out of 5 global groupings. This is also one of the member in the particular council. This is one international recognition. Then we have Konark Sun Temple. Okay, so this replica of Konark Sun wheel was installed recently in Rashtrapati Bhavan. Okay, so that is why it is important. So when UPSC have this love for art and architectural things or cultural things, they many times ask you to arrange either in the chronological order or they can ask you the architectural features of this particular thing or who constructed, which is a timeline and all. These type of questions are quite common in art and culture. So let us look into what is this. So 4 replicas of Konark wheels were installed at Rashtrapati Bhavan. Sustainable architecture, మొత్తం బిల్డింగ్ వాళ్ళ జూలాజికల్ పార్క్ ప్రిమైసెస్ ఏవైతే ఉన్నాయో సస్టైనబిలిటీ ఎన్షూర్ చేయాలంటే ఎలా అంటే ఎనర్జీ సేవింగ్స్ చేయాలి ఆర్ మీరు ఎంత రిలీజ్ చేస్తున్నారో ఎమిషన్స్ అంత కన్సర్వ్ చేయడానికి మీరు గ్రీన్ ప్రిమైసెస్ పెంచి అలా చేస్తే అప్పుడు మీకు గ్రీన్ బిల్డింగ్ కోడ్ నుంచి సర్టిఫికేషన్ వస్తుంది అనమాట. అంటే మీరు ఇప్పుడు ఫర్ ఎగ్జాంపుల్ ఇంత ఎనర్జీ కన్స్యూమ్ చేస్తున్నారు అనుకోండి, అంత ఎనర్జీ మీరే ప్రొడ్యూస్ చేసుకుంటామైనా అయి ఉండాలి. ఎమిషన్స్ రిలీజ్ చేస్తున్న దానికి అబ్జార్ప్షన్ అనేది మీరు పెంచే గ్రీన్ కవర్ లో ఉండటం అయినా ఇలాంటివి చేస్తే కనుక అప్పుడు మనకి ఈ సర్టిఫికేషన్ అనేది వస్తుంది. జూ ప్రొటెక్టెడ్ ఏరియాస్ ఇది ఒక్కటే ఉంది ఇప్పుడు. ఓకే, దెన్ సో ఇఫ్ యూ కెన్ సీ హియర్, this is the main objective is to showcase the cultural heritage, right, in Rashtrapati Bhavan. And you know, this Konark temple was constructed in 13th century by whom? Narsimhadeva I of Ganga dynasty, Eastern Ganga dynasty. When they have ruled Odisha, then they have constructed this Konark temple. And you have to keep in mind, this is also a UNESCO World Heritage Site. 1984 it was given a heritage site status. And Konark Sun Temple is very much famous. It is on the coast of Puri. Okay, so Puri is a city you have in Odisha, right? So there is the city of this particular temple also. So what type of materials were used? Kondalite. Okay, that means black pagoda. There is a stone, locally available stone, which was used here in the construction of Konark temple. What is the significant aspect here is the sun rays touches here. Okay, so that is what the most important thing. It captures the first light of the sun. So that is how inside on the sanctum sanctorium also the sun rays, first rays of the sun fall there directly. And you know, in this Arsavali region of Andhra Pradesh also, during those times it will be said like on Radha Saptami and all. So sun rays will directly follow on that particular thing. And it is very much important because see, sun temples are very rare in India. We have this Arsavali, we have Sun Temple Motera in Gujarat region, right? So in Jammu and Kashmir we have one sun temple, and here is one. Like that we have very rare, and already UPSC have asked with respect to sun temples. They have given list of options and they have asked you to pick what is a sun temple. Okay, so in that way they can ask you in future also. It has already UNESCO World Heritage Site recognition, and you know, World Heritage Site status will be given in two categories: cultural, natural, and mixed categories, right? So mixed means both cultural as well as naturally significant. We have only Kanchenjunga, okay, from Sikkim in both cultural and natural. So 7 from natural and rest of 43, no, that means 35, you can say 35 from cultural category. Okay, so that is, this is also from cultural category, 7 are from natural and 1 is from mixed category. Okay, this is one. And Prime Minister recently, not only this installation of Konark wheels in Rashtrapati Bhavan, in recent Mann Ki Baat also he mentioned about Konark Sun Temple. Okay, so I don't know how many of you generally go through the glimpse of Mann Ki Baat and all. Just go through, because he generally mentions many unique things and these type of things. Again, that becomes a zone of question in UPSC. Sometimes I can also ask you from the particular thing. Then last topic is Greenhouse Gas Bulletin. Report was released by World Meteorological Organization. So first thing you need to remember is, what are greenhouse gases? So whatever the gases that are released from the earth, okay, so which will protect, which will be like a blanket on the earth's atmosphere, which will allow the incoming solar radiation, but which will not allow the outgoing terrestrial radiation to escape, so that they'll try to generate heat here. That is what we call it as greenhouse gas effect. Okay, so generally, no, to simply understand, when in a midday in summer, when you lock up in a car, okay, without on the AC and all, what happens? Inside you will feel so much warm, right? So the same is the case here of the greenhouse gases. They are trapping outgoing radiation, but they allow the incoming radiation. That is the main problem. If the outgoing radiation is also released back into the atmosphere, then that much heat will not be there on the earth, right? That is the reason in the recent times, increasing greenhouse gas emissions because of fossil fuels and all these things is becoming a global concern, right? So what are the famous greenhouse gases? Carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide, sulfur hexafluorides. So these are many types of greenhouse gases. But to specifically address greenhouse gases, we have a protocol called Kyoto Protocol. Okay, so Kyoto Protocol was signed in 1997 under UNFCCC, and it has came into force in the year 2005. Okay, so it was signed in 1997. Kyoto, again a place in Japan. So it was signed in 97, but it came into force in 2005. Okay, so to target especially greenhouse gases, so that we can minimize the climate change and global warming. That is the main objective. But here, what is the main report saying? So it said around 10% increase in just 2 decades. That means in 20 years itself, there is an increase of 10% emissions of the greenhouse gases. Okay. So when you count in terms of emissions, India is the third largest greenhouse gas emitter. Okay. So in terms of countries, but if you add European Union also to the list, India becomes fourth. If European Union is not added, then India becomes third country. Okay. So, and India's per capita emissions are less than the world average. So these are the things which you need to remember. Per capita emissions are less than the world average. So what are the first 2 countries? First is China, second is USA. Okay. So these are the 2 largest greenhouse gas emitters. So then what, it is published annually by World Meteorological Organization since 2004 onwards. So what are the greenhouse gases monitored here? Carbon dioxide, methane as well as nitrous oxide. These are the 3 main gases focused in the report. So according to the report, so you can understand 420 parts per billion, okay, parts per million, ppm we call. So this is very high. You need to write these type of data when you show that there is a climate change or increase in the global warming. Then methane 1934 parts per billion. This is billion, this is million. And nitrous oxide parts 9 parts per billion. So in this way, there is an increase in the greenhouse gas emissions in the last 2 decades. That is what the highlight of the report. Then carbon dioxide, if you see, approximately 60% of the warming is coming because of carbon dioxide. So one main thing you have to keep in mind is methane is also a greenhouse gas emission, but it is a short-lived pollutant compared to the carbon dioxide. Okay, although it creates more warming effect compared to the carbon dioxide, it stays in the atmosphere only for a shorter time compared to the carbon dioxide. So what are the sources of methane? Paddy fields, okay, so animal rumination, fossil fuels, and also landfills, waste management also, that is also one thing, okay, and all these wetlands also release some amount of methane. So to curb methane only, we are recently launching many initiatives, especially Global Methane Pledge was initiated by US, European Union and these countries where there is high level methane emission. In COP26 Glasgow Summit of UNFCCC, this was launched, but India was not a partner because India has huge area under agriculture. That is why we didn't actually sign methane pledge. Okay, so that is one thing. And why there is increase in the greenhouse gas emissions? The report highlighted due to increased fossil fuel conversion. Fossil fuels means petrol, diesel, coal, these things. And at the same time, El Nino also, right? So if there is no rainfall, what happens? As I just told you in winter pollution also, rain will subside the pollution or the impact of warming, right? But because of El Nino or southern oscillation, what happens? Increase in temperatures will be there. Along with this, greenhouse gas emissions are also increasing it further. That is also one problem. So photosynthesis is also getting affected. If photosynthesis gets affected, entire food chain also gets disrupted. That is the main problem with this issue. Then methane, as I just told you, it accounts for 16% of the warming effect. Okay, so that means 64% from carbon dioxide, 16% from the methane. And nitrous oxide is a ozone depleting substance. So here you can find the answer. So both ozone depleting and greenhouse gas substances are very less, and we have nitrous oxide also one such one, right? So then you have to understand they constitute 6% according to the report. 64% carbon dioxide, 16% methane and 6% nitrous oxide. Okay. Then it is also a long-lived greenhouse gas. Methane is a short-lived and nitrous oxide is a long-lived greenhouse gas. And according to Kyoto Protocol, how many greenhouse gas emissions are there? This is very much important. They can ask a straight question. Carbon dioxide, nitrous oxide, I just told you. CH4 means methane, sulfur hexachloride, then nitrogen, trifluoride. So these are the greenhouse gases listed in the Kyoto Protocol. Okay. So carbon dioxide, nitrous oxide, methane, sulfur hexafluoride, nitrogen, trifluoride. So these are the greenhouse gases listed in the Kyoto Protocol. Kyoto Protocol itself is mainly to address the greenhouse gas emissions to prevent the climate change. So these are the topics of discussion for today. If you have any doubts, you can ask. I have tried to cover as much important topics as I can in the possible time. If you have any doubts and queries, you can ask. సెక్యులరిజం ఎందుకు ఇష్యూ అవుతుంది? ఇష్యూ ఎందుకు అవుతుంది అంటే ఒకటి ఫస్ట్ మనకి యూనిఫామ్ లా లేదు. ఓకే, సో కొన్ని లాస్ అనేవి డిస్క్రిమినేటరీగా ఉన్నాయి. ఫర్ ఎగ్జాంపుల్ ట్రిపుల్ తలాక్ మన అంటే ఇస్లామిక్ రిలీజన్ లో అలా డైవర్స్ ఇవ్వడం అనేది రిలీజియస్ శాంక్షన్ ఉంది, బట్ హిందూయిజంలో అలా లేదు కదా. అలాంటప్పుడు హిందూ ఉమెన్ తో పోలిస్తే ముస్లిం ఉమెన్ డిస్క్రిమినేషన్ కి గురవుతున్నట్టే కదా. ఇంకొక యాంగిల్ లో చూస్తే మనకి జనరల్ గా హిందువులలో ఒకళ్ళ కంటే ఎక్కువ స్పౌస్ కలిగి ఉంటే కనుక ఇట్స్ ఎ వైలేషన్ అండ్ ఇట్స్ ఎ గ్రౌండ్ ఫర్ డైవర్స్. బట్ ఇస్లామిక్ లాలో యూ కెన్ హ్యావ్ 4 wives ఎట్ ఎ టైమ్, దట్స్ ఎ వైలేషన్ అగైన్ ఆర్ డిస్క్రిమినేషన్. సో ఇలాంటి ఆస్పెక్ట్స్ కొన్ని. అండ్ యూజింగ్ ఆఫ్ రిలీజన్ యాజ్ ఏ ఓట్ బ్యాంక్ పాలిటిక్స్, దట్ ఈస్ ఆల్సో వన్ రీజన్. సో అలా కాకుండా కొంచెం సెన్సిటైజ్ చేసేటప్పుడు మైనారిటీస్ ఎప్పుడైనా ఎక్కడైనా అంతే, మెజారిటీ వర్సెస్ మైనారిటీ ఉన్నప్పుడు మైనారిటీస్ విల్ ఫీల్ లెస్ కాన్ఫిడెంట్. So any measure has to be in a form giving assurance to the minority. But అలా కాకుండా మైనారిటీస్ ని అడ్రస్ చేస్తున్నట్టు ఆర్ మైనారిటీస్ ని పాయింట్ అవుట్ చేస్తున్నట్టు గవర్నమెంట్ ఏమైనా ఇనిషియేటివ్స్ తీసుకుంది అనుకోండి. ఫర్ ఎగ్జాంపుల్ సిటిజన్షిప్ అమెండ్మెంట్, అక్కడ ఓన్లీ నాన్ ముస్లిమ్స్ అన్నారు కదా, మిగతా అందరికీ ఇచ్చారు సిటిజన్షిప్, అవునా కదా. నాన్ ముస్లిమ్స్ ఫ్రమ్ ఆఫ్ఘనిస్తాన్, పాకిస్తాన్ అండ్ బంగ్లాదేశ్. సో ఈ 3 countries నుంచి నాన్ ముస్లిమ్స్ అందరికీ సిటిజన్షిప్ ఇస్తామంటే వై ఆర్ యూ నాట్ ఇంక్లూడింగ్ ముస్లిమ్స్ ఇన్ టు ఇట్? అవునా కదా. ఇప్పుడు అలాంటప్పుడు మనకి శ్రీలంక నుంచి బుద్ధిస్ట్ అంటే పర్సిక్యూషన్ జరిగినప్పుడు తమిళియన్స్ విషయంలో జరిగింది. మనకి బంగ్లాదేశ్ నుంచి రోహింగ్యాస్ వస్తున్నారు, రైట్. సో ఇలా డిఫరెంట్ కంట్రీస్ నుంచి డిఫరెంట్ ఇష్యూస్ ఉన్నప్పుడు వై ఓన్లీ ఎక్స్క్లూడింగ్ ముస్లిమ్స్ అంటే వాళ్ళలో ఒక ఇన్సెక్యూరిటీ అనేది క్రియేట్ అవుతుంది కదా. అంటే దిస్ ఇస్ నాట్ ద ల్యాండ్ ఆఫ్ ఆర్స్ అనే క్వశ్చన్ వస్తుంది. అలాంటప్పుడు ఏమవుతుంది, డివైడ్ పాలిటిక్స్ అనేవి ఎక్కువ ప్లే చేస్తాయి. అలాంటి వాటి వల్ల ఏమవుతుంది, సెక్యులరిజం అనేది అంటే జనరల్ గా నా కంట్రీ అనుకునే వాళ్ళు ఏంటి, ఇప్పుడు నా ఇంట్రెస్ట్ ఉండట్లేదు అనే ఫీలింగ్ వస్తే దే స్టార్ట్ దిస్ ఇస్ అ పాలిటిక్స్. దట్ ఈస్ ఆల్సో వన్ ఫ్యాక్టర్, రైట్. దెన్ అలా డిఫరెంట్ ఫ్యాక్టర్స్ ఆర్ దేర్, నాట్ ఓన్లీ దిస్. అదొక మెజర్ అంటే ఇన్ టర్మ్స్ ఆఫ్ రిలీజియస్ ఆస్పెక్ట్స్ లో కానీ ఉమెన్ రిలేటెడ్ రైట్స్ ని ప్రొటెక్ట్ చేయడానికి, ఒక యూనిఫార్మిటీ తీసుకురావడానికి, జెండర్ జస్టిస్ ఇలాంటివి చేయడానికి యూనిఫామ్ సివిల్ కోడ్ ఒక మెజర్. కానీ కొంచెం ఏంటంటే సెన్సిటైజేషన్ ఒకటి, కాన్స్టిట్యూషనల్ సేఫ్ గార్డ్స్ అన్నిటిని మనం ప్రాపర్ గా ఇంప్లిమెంట్ చేయడం ఒకటి. దాంతో పాటు గవర్నమెంట్ కూడా ఇలాంటి కన్వర్షన్స్, ఫర్ ఎగ్జాంపుల్ ఇప్పుడు చూస్తే యూపీలో మనకి రీసెంట్ గా యాంటీ కన్వర్షన్ లా పాస్ అయింది. మెనీ స్టేట్ గవర్నమెంట్స్ ఆర్ ఆల్సో పాసింగ్ దోస్. అంటే మనకి ఇప్పుడు ఎలా అంటే లవ్ జిహాద్ అనేది జరగకుండా ఉండడానికి అని చెప్తున్నారు. ఓకే, బట్ హౌ వీ కెన్ ఎన్షూర్? అలాంటివి కష్టమే కదా. ఇప్పుడు మనకి ఇలా ఇవి జరగకూడదు అనుకుంటున్నప్పుడే స్పెషల్ మ్యారేజ్ యాక్ట్ అనేది ఒకటి ఉంది 1854. దాని ప్రకారం ఏంటి, ఇంటర్ ఫెయిత్ కపుల్ దే కెన్ మ్యారీ అండర్ దట్ పర్టికులర్ యాక్ట్. మరి అలాంటివి ఉన్నప్పుడు హౌ ఆర్ యూ రెస్ట్రిక్టింగ్ రిలీజియస్ కన్వర్షన్స్? యాంటీ కన్వర్షన్ లా తీసుకురావడం అనేది మళ్ళీ ఇట్స్ వైలేషన్ ఆఫ్ సెక్యులర్ ప్రిన్సిపల్స్ కదా. అలాంటివి కొన్ని థ్రెటన్ చేస్తున్నాయి కాబట్టి కొంచెం గవర్నమెంట్ కూడా సెన్సిటైజ్డ్ గా ఉండాలి. It cannot only take into consideration the needs and aspirations of majority. Minority interest protect అయినప్పుడు majority anyhow they'll feel safeguarded కదా. ఎప్పుడైనా కూడా minorities కి కొంచెం ఆ ఫీలింగ్ ఉంటుంది, ఎక్స్క్లూజన్ అని కానీ, they're not included in the main ambit అని కానీ. So that has to be addressed at first. SDGs కాదు, మనకి MDGs ఇంతకు ముందు ఉండేవి. 2000 నుంచి 2015 వరకు మిలీనియం డెవలప్మెంట్ గోల్స్ ఉండేవి. వాటి ప్లేస్ లో మనకి SDGs వచ్చాయి ఇప్పుడు, సస్టైనబుల్ డెవలప్మెంట్ గోల్స్. ఉంది బ్రంట్లైన్ కమిషన్ 1987 మనకు రిపోర్ట్ ఇచ్చింది. కానీ ఇప్పుడు MDGs రిలవెన్స్ లేదు కదా. SDGs వచ్చేసిన తర్వాత MDGs మనం అచీవ్ చేయడానికి లేదు కాబట్టి ప్రెసెంట్ SDG 13 రిలేటెడ్ టు క్లైమేట్ యాక్షన్ ఇస్ ద మెయిన్ థింగ్ విచ్ Kyoto Protocol will address. Okay, any other question? Damamundam forest, I didn't get you what you're asking about. Teja, ఏ ఇష్యూ గురించి అనేది ఒక స్పెసిఫిక్ గా చెప్పండి. ఐఎమ్ నాట్ అవేర్ ఆఫ్ దిస్. సో దెన్ యూ కెన్ హైలైట్ హౌ చైనా ఈస్ ట్రైంగ్ టు increase its presence in the Indian neighborhood, like string of pearls theory, Belt and Road Initiative, you can say. Or you can also say like how it is trying to get India's neighbors into its trap and all. So debt trap diplomacy, you can say. Or like you can say the issue of LAC, confrontation that we have faced in the Sikkim region, or even in the Sikkim and in the Ladakh region also we have faced intrusions, right? That you can also talk about. And in terms of economic trade also you can talk about. Okay. And they also have stopped the Brahmaputra water release. Okay, they have constructed dams in the low Raipurian region, right? That is also one thing which you can say. So in that, try to include multiple dimensions. Okay, so giving stipend visas, considering Arunachal Pradesh as part of their territory. Okay, like protesting when Indian Prime Minister or President or any minister visit Arunachal Pradesh. So these things you can highlight. See, if there is insurgency, there will be instability. That is what they want. They want to fuel up these things. Always we'll write that only, comprehensive border management, talks, dialogue, diplomacy, discretion, and all, but none of this will be implemented. Panchsheel. So, for example, see, in the case of, you can point out this also, like in India, when this Jammu and Kashmir reorganization happened, China has made a remark on that. Okay, but when Uyghur Muslims in Xinjiang province of China were getting persecuted, also India did not intervene into it. We today also we respect one China policy, that you can say. So when we are respecting one China policy, how can it claim Arunachal Pradesh as its territory? Mutual non-intervention to one religion, one particular country's affairs is one of the aspect of Panchsheel. No, then why they are not adhering to it? That is also one thing you can. So we didn't actually intervene. No, we just have given some support to Dalai Lama when he visited. That's it. We didn't generally touch anything. No, we didn't say like Tibet is not part of China. We didn't do anything, right? That is also. And you can also present this investment angle also in the form of FDIs. It is trying to again decouple Indian economy. That is also one thing which you can suggest.